Hi, welcome to day 6 of our confinement videos. Today we're going to travel around the world. We're going to start here in Mountain Green, Utah, then we're going to go over to Vietnam, we're going to bounce back to Colorado, and then hopefully come back into your house. But I want to start with what I want to call my Sunday afternoon meltdown. That despite all that I do to practice and teach and share these thoughts, ideas, and concepts, I, like you and everyone else, have moments where I get sucked into the vortex. That, you know, that place where your thoughts just spin and it loops in your head and you suck down in and all you see are the worst case scenarios? That's exactly what happened to me yesterday afternoon. Great Sunday. We got up, had breakfast together as a family, did some virtual kind of church service. It was really kind of fun. I taught a little lesson and was doing great. And then all of a sudden, about 12:30, boom, across my phone comes a little message. President Trump has decided to extend the shelter in place until the end of April. And I just sucked into the vortex. And terrible all day. Worst case scenario, what if my clients never hire me? What if the business never comes back? What if we lose our home? What if we're not able to pay this? What if we burn through all our savings? What if my kids, what if they need help? And I'm struggling so much I can't help them and I don't have enough money for them, but I don't have enough money to help my kids. And what if they lose their jobs? And do you get this? Have you done this? Have you got sucked into the vortex before? It's exactly what happened to me. And I spent all afternoon there. And it wasn't until about 6 o'clock that I just shook my head. I can't do this. I have to get out of this. I've got to move. I literally went and laid down and took a nap. And when I woke up from my nap, I said, I have to go back to my basics. And so I went back to my foundational heroes, my first mentors, people like Jim Rohn and Og Mandino and Stephen Covey, and probably most of all, Tony Robbins, the guy who taught me more about managing my state and coaching people than anyone I've ever met. But those are my heroes. They're my mentors. They're the ones that grounded me in my philosophies. And I just started reading through their stuff. And as I look up on my bookshelf and I'm reading and trying to get back to a more centered place, there it is. Harvard Business Review's 10 best articles on psychological resilience. I pull it off the shelf and I open it up. And first article, first paragraph, they talked about Admiral Jim Stockdale. Admiral Jim Stockdale died in 2005, but he was in the Hanoi Hilton over in Vietnam. And he was a senior ranking naval officer, so he was in charge of all the secret communications, the discipline of all the prisoners that were in the Hanoi Hilton. And he was being interviewed by Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great. And the author prints in this article that interview. So I was reading through the interview, he asked and he says, why is it some people died in the prisoner of war camps and some of you survived? What was the difference? You had a 7.5-year view. What was the difference of those that survived in the prison camp and those that didn't? And Admiral Stockdale said, well, the ones that died is easy. They were the optimists. And that struck me at first, like, what do you mean they were the optimists? He said, listen, they were the ones that decided by Christmas we'll be home. And then when Christmas passed, by Easter we'll be home. And when Easter passed, by 4th of July, we'll be home. Then by next Christmas. And he said what happened was they set these false hopes, and then as soon as the date passed, they crashed emotionally. Viktor Frankl shares the same concept. He said it's exactly what happened in the prison camps, and he writes about it in Man's Search for Meaning. That they had, we're going to be out by Christmas, we're going to be out by my birthday. But when the date passed, the hope drained out of them, and they lost their will to live, and they literally died. Admiral Stockdale said he believes that those prisoners that had gotten into that false optimism, that they actually died of a broken heart. Then, in the same interview, he said, but Admiral Stockdale, why did you and others survive? And I want you to listen to this. If you have a pen and paper, jot this down, write this down. He said, I never lost faith in the end of the story. Hold on to that. I never lost faith in the end of the story. He said, I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail. And in the end, I would be able to turn this experience into the defining moment of my life, which in retrospect, I would never trade. Let that sink in for a minute. He said, I would never voluntarily go into a prison or war camp again, but I would never trade my experience, who I became, what I developed in that place served me for the rest of my life. It was the defining experience of my life. I've talked to you in the past about whose list are you going to be on? What if you turn this in to the defining experience of your life? Never lose faith in the end of the story. The virus will pass. The economy will come back. We will come out of being sheltered. But what's your end story? Who do you want to become out of this? Because that is where you're going to be defined. So let's move from Hanoi to the opposite approach. And what I discovered was I was suffering from the Stockdale syndrome. I had decided that on April 20th, that's when things were going to get better. I just made the date up in my head. And when I saw that little thing come across my phone that had gone to April 30th, I lost all my hope. I got sucked into the vortex. I was completely negative. I was a prisoner of what they call the Stockdale syndrome. And it took me a nap, going back to my mentors, and then reading Jim Stockdale's story to pull me back and realize that's exactly what's happening. So if you find yourself in the vortex, ask yourself, are you in the Stockdale syndrome? And if so, choose to step out. How do you do that? You follow the lead of my friend in Colorado. Now, he's a business owner, and he's a car dealer. He has 8 dealerships, about 250 employees, and they do millions and millions of dollars in revenue. And all of that is on him. And I called him last week just to say, how you doing? You doing okay? And he said, you know what? I'm really grateful you called because last night I had the worst night of my life. I said, what happened? He said, Chris, I was just getting super concerned about what was going on and what was happening. I couldn't fall asleep. I finally got to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night with a panic attack. He said, I've never had a panic attack. I had no idea. He goes, I couldn't breathe. He said, I thought I was going to die. And I said, wow. And he said, but I got to tell you, I got up this morning and I'm feeling so much better. I said, tell me, what'd you do this morning? What happened? And he talked about it. And I said, well, help me. What's the difference between what were you thinking last night right before your panic attack and what were you thinking this morning right before you had your breakthrough? And he goes, I got sucked into the vortex, Chris. I started thinking, what if I don't make it? What if this goes too long? What if I have to fire all my employees? What if I lose my business? He said, all my life savings, everything I have is in this business. If it goes away, I have nothing. And I said, yeah, I think that might create a panic attack for me. And I said, so what did you do in the morning? He said, well, I got up, I got on my Peloton, did a 30-minute hard workout. And he said, and I just started to think, and the thought just formed in my head, I was made for this moment. I was made for a time like this. This is the kind of environment that I'm supposed to work in. And then we spent a few minutes talking about other things that he'd overcome in his life, other challenges that he's got through, and how hard he has fought his whole life to carve out success where other people told him he couldn't and shouldn't. There was always someone that was smarter and prettier and faster and better than him, but he beat every one of them. He outperformed every one of them. And I would suggest to you that regardless of what's happening around you, with your family, with your business, with the economy, with the virus, no matter what's going on around you, there is a part of you that's strong. There's a part of you that's got power, that you have overcome things in the past. There's a part of you that's hungry and excited in the face of challenge and in face of unfathomable fear. I cannot tell you how many, when I was doing therapy with adolescent drug addicts, or I was working with abused women, that just broken, hurt, struggling people. But when they started to engage in therapy, when they became vulnerable, when they opened up, there was a moment in their recovery where they became strong. They accessed a part of them that could face unfathomable fear and could still step up. That there was a part of them that simply would not accept excuses and smallness and pettiness and just bullshit. And they would not accept it. I need you to call on that part of you. I need you to call on that part of you that will let you step up and become what you were made for. Because it's not just Jim Stockdale in Hanoi, and it's not just my business friend in Colorado. It's every single one of you. You have in you that courageous part, that strong part, that part of you that you can call forth. And some of us wait our whole lives until there's just one super existential circumstance, a really bad thing, and you have to step up and you do it. Few of us take and say, the love I have for my family, the goals I have for my business, the things I want in my life, what I want to do to lead my friends. Step up now. Call on that courageous part of you. That pull that out. It's there. You've overcome so many things in so many ways, but it's there. And to call on that part of you and bring it forth and make it happen. Those of you that own businesses, I want you to remember this. Jim Collins in the book, what he wrote in this book, Good to Great, after this interview with Stockdale, is he said every great organization faces significant adversity of one sort or another, just like you are now. Along the way to being great, you have to go through the adversity. Great leadership is about resolve and an almost stoic determination to do what needs to be done. So there's a lot of things we can't control about this virus. There's a lot of things we can't control about what's going on in our life. But you absolutely can control what you to do today. You can have absolutely ferocious resolve to step up and do whatever it takes, because you can call on that courageous part of you. All of us eventually are going to get back to work. All of us are eventually going to get back to what we used to have. And there's a saying that I wrote down long ago to a program that I went through, and it says, it's what you practice in private that you will be rewarded for in public. Let that sink in. What you practice in private is what you will be rewarded for in public. Now is your private time. Now is the time to practice. Now is when you want to practice. If you're not in as good physical shape as you want, now is the time to practice eating and exercise. If your relationship isn't as strong and intimate and as tense as you want, now is the time to practice your relationship. And for those of you that own businesses, now is the time to work on your business, because you don't have the time to work in your business. Strategize, envision the business that you want to become. Who do you need to become in order to succeed? In this new environment, how do you need to step up? Where do you need to get better? And if you'll do that, take this private time to practice what you need most, so that you can turn your private time into public reward. And you can take this and step up, call forth that courageous part of you. I want to finish up with a quote from, I told you one of my favorite mentors is Tony Robbins. And I read this morning on the internet, so it must be inspired to share with you. This is Tony Robbins, and he says, I want you to remember, it's time to become conscious of your power and remind yourself and all those around you that the human race is resilient, flexible, and strong beyond imagination. Lead, don't follow. Discover ways to innovate, to create, and to give and support others who may not be able to see past this winter season that we're in. You have to lead with our essence, with our truth, with our faith, with our certainty, and our natural birthright, and our abilities can be awoken. This ability can be activated. So live the truth around you, everyone around you, and then we can solve any problem we face. The human race always has and always will. I love that. Winter comes and it's cold and you're sheltered in, but winter is always followed by spring. Spring will come. Practice in private to prepare for your chance to learn from Admiral Stockdale in Hanoi, to learn from my failures and sucking into the vortex in Mountain Green, Utah, and to learn from my friend in Colorado. Call forth the best part of you, and we together can create something amazing. Thanks. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow.